Wrapping up the show, we'll be visiting the locations of two of our neighborhood sustainability grants, a Japanese Zen garden at Wellington Elementary and the Piecemeal Garden at BCTC.
Well, you're here at Wellington Elementary School, and this is our Japanese Zen garden. It was funded through a grant from the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government Department of Environmental and Public Works Neighborhood Sustainability Grant, and we received that grant for 2 years in a row. Well, when Wellington opened 3 years ago and I was hired to teach Japanese here, the grounds were very bare and I had this lovely window outside my classroom, so I decided that the students would really benefit from having a Japanese Zen garden. At our school here we have an EBD unit, and those children I thought would specifically really benefit from having this garden here, to be able to have a space to cool down and chill out if they needed to do that and just connect with nature. When I had the first idea, I drew a rough sketch and I was looking for a professional designer, so I contacted the University of Kentucky, and they had 3 of their graduate students who were interested in designing the garden, so I had them come out and we worked together in incorporating my ideas and theirs, and the 3 boys presented their designs, and we went with their basic philosophy and worked it into our budget. And then I had John Cobb, who has designed gardens at Henry Clay and Beaumont Middle School, also get involved. We paid him as a contractor the first year, and the second year we paid another gentleman who's a professional landscaper to help us with our edging and really get the stones laid out nicely, and some more plants we expanded out that way. This has really been a community effort. We have had high school students involved from Dunbar and also Lafayette High School. Both of those schools have like a green team that does volunteer work, so they've come out on Saturdays. The students that initially designed the garden from UK have come out and they volunteered. My personal friends, we've advertised it through PTA and had some parents and their students come out. The students loved getting their hands dirty when we were in the planting phase, so it has really been a group effort. I have a Japanese club here at Wellington, and our Japanese club comes out and does some weeding, and we also, on our first club meeting, did a lot of manicuring with the rocks. We have to constantly be picking those little rocks up and make sure they're in place. The first year we received $2,500, and we matched the $2,500 with volunteer hours, and a lot of the rock that you see here came out of construction sites, so people volunteered to go get it and bring it in here and lay it out. We got a cherry blossom tree donated from the U.S. Embassy through the consulate office in Nashville, and that was to celebrate the 100 years of the cherry blossoms that were donated to Washington, D.C. from Tokyo. So our cherry blossom tree that we have here that was donated is actually a direct linear descendant of those very first trees that were given to Washington, D.C. That's very special to us. I have plans to expand the garden even further to include signage. We also would like to have water as a soothing element, some kind of fountain that recycles the water. We want to have solar powered lighting that ties in with our green initiative here at Wellington Elementary. And with that, it's a dream of mine to have the Japanese tea ceremony being performed in my classroom in the evening, and have some parents and students out to drink the tea while overlooking the beautiful scenery of the garden lit up at night.
I'm a professor at Bluegrass Community and Technical College. I teach geography, and I also teach peace studies, and we've had a peace studies program at BCTC for 11 years now, which I think is really nice, and I think it ties with our garden that we try for this to be a peaceful place. We have at BCTC, we've had a sustainability committee for probably, I guess about 9 years maybe, And a few years ago, well, in 2008, we were talking about that it would be good if we could have a community garden, and so I asked the person who was the building manager at the time if there was a space that we could have a community garden, and she said, well, over at the Leestown campus, there's this area, but it's really desolate. But if you want to have a garden over there, you can do that. So I came over here, and I don't think this is desolate at all. I think this is gorgeous. And I mean, there were high weeds and all that sort of thing, but it was so pretty. And so in 2008, my son came up with a sod lifter, and we cut out the grass in some circles and had our first little garden. But it was just, trying to just establish that we could do this. And there's deer up here, so the deer ate what we had planted and all that sort of thing. But then in 2009, we put the fence around and decided to paint it so it would be pretty instead of just having old brown 4x4s, and expanded the garden. So it's about 2.5 acres now. And there were a good number of people who the very first year wanted to have community gardens, and every year since then there have been more who wanted to. And then about, maybe 2 years after that, so that was 2009, a 3 years after that, we got a little bit of funding to do our hoop house, and so we're use it to some extent. It gets kind of hot in there, and we don't have heating and cooling, so we just have to try to do the best we can with it. But we use that. And then last year, there's a group that it's called Growing Warriors, and they're training service people, training veterans to do sustainable agriculture, and they have several places that they're training, and they wanted to have one of their training sites here. So we've got veterans who are working with us, and then last year we were also with the veterans coming. We found out about the grants that the city has for sustainability, and that was really nice. We applied for one on water, and there were two parts to it. Or there are two parts to it. One, there's an ephemeral stream that's over on the other side of the garden that was really a mess. It was a huge mess, and so we did a good bit of work trying to clear a lot of that out, and we planted 125 native plants over there. And then the other part of it is doing water catchment off of this big tan building. And a lot of water comes off of buildings, more than you think would. This particular building, the way that you figure it out is what the square footage of the surface is, and then multiply that times 0.6, and then for every inch of rain, that's how many gallons of water you have. So that tan building in a typical year would shed about 49,000 gallons of water. And we don't have water up here, and so we've been having to bring in water that's chlorinated, and none of us really like doing that. We'd much rather have water that we've caught. So that's the reason we applied for that, so that we can catch that water. And we had a donation of a solar panel and the pump. And so there's the 1,000-gallon tank, and then the pump to pump it up to a smaller tank, and it's from the smaller tank that people can go and just fill up their buckets to water their gardens. And the gardens are not so big that people can't water them by hand, just with their water bucket. So I think that's going to work really, really nicely.